This is Roman with Holistic Dog Training, and of course, one of my topics again, something to talk about. How about no pull dog harnesses? What you need to know when you choose a no pull harness. Hi. Okay, so I'm not a good video editor, so forgive my stuff here around. So, why I do that? Actually, I had no plans to do that, but lately, with a couple of questions that I got and some confusing messages out there, I decided to do it quickly. However, it's kind of detailed, so stick here around. You want to share it so people can recognize what's going on. So, harnesses. Why do we need harnesses? What do they work for? We're gonna go different versions of it. We're gonna go a little bit through the biology of the dog system and what we need to do here. We're gonna do a close-up on different types of harnesses, and we're gonna look a little bit of the anatomy of those harnesses. Just give you a heads up what we have to talk about today. Now, let's bust some myths. First of all, for those who, of course, will say, ugh, again, one of those harness people, let me clear something up. No tool does the work for you when it comes to dogs pulling on a leash. Let's go a little bit behind that concept. Why do dogs pull on a leash? Because they can. As simple as that. They can pull on the leash, and therefore they do it. Right? Better now? Better microphone? Good. Now, there are some people who would say there is a pull reflex, right? The more you pull on the leash, the more the dog goes forward. But that's not the reason why the dog is pulling. The dog is pulling because he's been conditioned. The harder he pulls, the more likely he gets there. And the only one who's at fault is the one who's holding back the leash. Simple as that. It doesn't matter what kind of attachment you have on your dog, collar, harness, whatever, that's just going to happen. So for people who tell you the harness will reinforce the dog on pulling on the leash, is wrong. The same thing with people says the collar will enforce the dog to pull on the leash. Or other people says, well, your leadership. No, it's not that. It's the dog himself who gets rewarded for doing a work harder to get from point A to point B. And you're the only one who makes the dog's life miserable. That's the fact. So how do we stop that? Of course, many people who says, well, you're going to use a shock collar. Pop, chop, boom, boing, buzz, done. Right? Let's put that aside a little bit. Some other people who says, dude, we don't use shock collars. We can use a prong collar. Scientifically proven, blah, 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 that it does no harm and blah, 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 and everything. We get on that back later. Let's put that aside a little bit. And then we have those who says, oh, you're going to use those, no pull harnesses. That will do the work. That's what they think. Let's put that aside as well. So we have all these things aside. Let's bring something else aside. Let's bring the dog in. Okay? Let's look a little bit closer and see what's going on with the dog. So important organs of the dog are going and communicating from the body into the brain. Okay? And as you can see here in this diagram, very simple, you have the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. The one tells the dog to go for it, and the other one lets him kind of chill out about it. Okay, then the next thing we have here is the bone structure. And the reason why I'm referring to the bone structure, because many people think that it's a great idea to control the head so you can control the dog. Okay. Let's keep that aside as well. We're going to get to that a little bit. And then we say the other people says, "Oh, are you kidding me? You use those tools, and the other tool is going to destroy the trachea." Blah blah blah. Yeah, sure. Okay, you jump off the roof, you're going to kill yourself. That works too. And then we have other important organs around the neck, all the arteries and veins. And those smarty pants who think like, oh, sure, you're going to choke your dog, suppress the blood flow in the brain. The dog will give up what he wants to do because he's fading out. Basically, his brain basically shuts down, and therefore the whole drive is gone. Great. Why don't you cut these arteries and you don't have a problem anymore at all? And then we have the lymphatic vessels and lymph nodes and everything, and the thymus. And all these things are all around the neck. So your dog's neck has more organs combined in that short period of area than the whole dog total. Okay? Of course, the whole systems are going through the neck, including nerves. We haven't that said yet. So when people choose a harness, it's because usually they're very conscious about what's going on around the neck, and they avoid harming the dog. And I think the idea is great. The motivation is great. The application is wrong. Here's why. Because if you don't address the dog's reason for pulling on the leash, no matter what tools you're going to use, you either make your lives miserable, right? Or the dog will give up. But why would he give up? That's something that comes in natural. Going from point A to point B is a freedom of choice of a dog to be free to move from one place to another. And of course, some of you will say, well, what about the streets? The dog is going to get killed. I need to control it. We're going to get back to that control issue. So first of all, the bad news. No matter what tool you use to address your dog's leash pulling is not going to work. As simple as that the tool is not teaching your dog anything. The dog has to understand the concept of following you is more rewarding than being ahead of you. And then he has to come to the same concept that with you, it's more fun getting from point A to point B. And by doing so, we already start talking about a relationship. Your dog, to do that, needs a relationship with you. He needs to relate his position and his location and his job with what you do in your location and your idea of going to do something. And then we have those squirrels and cats and other animals that go in between our relationship. And all of a sudden, you get like 15 feet long arms because your dog is just pulling you out of the street, right? Now, let's get some straight. If you think you will be able to address your dog's leash pulling by exposing him to those kind of triggers, I'm going to give you a heads up. It's not going to work. And if you believe the idea of punishing a dog for making a mistake, it's the way to go, it's a good time to leave that video because you don't need it. Because you're already blocked into a belief system that tells you that if you don't punish, you're not getting any results. Don't waste your time. You have nothing to do here. Go somewhere else. You might have more fun. I don't want you to waste your time. But if you're interested to see where I'm going with this, then hang out because you will be rewarded. I am a reward-based behaviorist and trainer. Therefore, you will be rewarded by the end. So don't fear about it. I'm not going to punish you for that. So let's go back to the dog and the pulling on the leash that you want to stop. There are different type of breeds. Each breed has certain configurations. See that as sliding scales on the breed traits. Some dogs are flashers. They want to make things move. Everything that stops, they're very good at organizing themselves in their movements. Some other dogs are there to go and bring back things and retrieve them. Most of the dogs are there to react to moving things. And some dogs wants to stick with you. So we have the guardian breeds as a general term and the hunting breeds as a general term. So the hunting breeds are those breeds who, in their breed configuration, they have tendencies to be able to leave a safe space, a safe place, go deal with things, and come back again or stay there, depending on what they're going to do. The guardian breeds are more likely to stay put and be local and not move far away from the situation. But those dogs need the free range to move in order to be able to navigate in that safe space they perceive. Like, say, guardian breeds, their territory is as far as they can see and theoretically as far as they can smell. A hunting dog, he has no trigger, he's not moving. If something moves, he doesn't get his attention. It's the way the brain is structured. So, that aspect, if we want to address the dog's leash pulling, we have to come from an aspect of when you are triggered, when your sympathetic nervous system is triggered because of a movement, the first idea that comes to your mind is to check in with your partner and coordinate what you have to do next. To do so, of course, we have to have that relationship. Who are you who wants my attention? And who are you to tell me that you have a problem? You see where it comes in? If a dog doesn't have a relationship with you, he will make his own decisions and you're not part of that decision making team. So, if you struggle with your dog for not following instructions and you're struggling with leash pulling, etc., one thing you have to put in question is, how is my relationship? And I know you love your dog and your dog loves you, but in crisis is where the relationship is being challenged. If you don't have a secure attachment relationship with your dog, in crisis, that relationship will fall apart because the dog will choose to do things on his own and you will not be part of it. And the more you try to restrict it, the more problem you become. So the dog has two problems. One he needs to deal with, and then you on the other side wants to make it go away. Now, when we look into make the right choices on the harness, we're not coming from a perspective that I want my harness to stop my dog from leash pulling, because that's not going to work, as I said before, right? I'm going to get to that in a bit. But the harness is just for your dog to have an attachment, a physical attachment between you and your dog, because it's the law. That's why. Otherwise, dogs could be free. Of course, if we have socialized our dogs well. So there are multiple things that come in together. The one is we didn't socialize our dog well, so they are not in control remotely what we want to do with them. So they're not following commands and cues and etc. And the other side is that it's a law that you have the dog on a leash. So let's say we have to have the dog on a leash because that's the law, and we have the dog on a leash because we haven't invested so much time to train the dog. Therefore, we need to be attached to the dog with a secure attachment, which is in that case the leash, not the relationship. I love how people try to spam my video. That's good on one side. And I have the ability to block them, so we're good. Now, the other thing that we see here is the moment the dog is triggered, there is an emotion coming up. And that emotion has to be fulfilled. And in order for that emotion to become, let's call it, equalized, the dog has to perform an action. And that action has two directions, either away or back. So if a dog is triggered by a squirrel, his emotion is go get it. There is a separation included there, or an aggression, or fear. There are all these basic emotions behind that. And in order to manage that, we need to help the dog understand how to manage his emotions. To do that, we have to be a good example. If you want to go from point A to point B in that emotional state, that's not a good idea. So we have to teach the dog morals and ethics. And you tell me, dude, blah, blah, blah. All I want is my dog not to freaking pull on the leash. I hear you. Of course, you can go the short route, use a short collar, prong collar, ruin your relationship, ruin your dog, and feel good about it. But I'm not going that route. I'm going the long route, the route that is beneficial to you and your dog. A, because the dog and you should have fun going out for a walk. And B, you should be able to help your dog navigating as a good parent to manage his emotions when he sees all these triggers. And from that perspective, the safest way to attach your dog to yourself is a leash and a harness. Now, some people will tell you there are different types, three different, four different, well, also different type of harnesses. There are basically three kinds, basically two kinds. The ones that makes your dog lives miserable, and the other ones that don't. And those who don't make your life miserable, there are different attachments in leash form, and three attachments around the dog's body. And then you have the ones that makes your dog's life miserable. They have all these fancy techniques and leverages on there to squeeze your dog's shoulders, to pull your dog back, and squeeze your dog's belly and squeeze your dog's chest. Everything that it costs to make your dog feel bad not to perform that behavior. So while you want to make your dog life nice, the harness makes your dog's life miserable. And who put the dog's harness on the dog? And the dog will blame you for that. And of course, some dogs will be so reactive that they don't even let you put the harness on, and you go down the rabbit hole in that direction, than how to deal with a dog who hates his harness. Now, there are multiple things that can happen here. The dog doesn't like the harness because he has allergies. Wait. So the dog already feels miserable before I actually put the harness on. And because he's miserable internally, he also be more reactive externally, right? If the dog doesn't feel good, he's not reacting good. And this is also where one of the problems of leash pulling comes in. The less confident the dog feels, the more he's in pain, the more he's in stress, the more he will be reacting to his environment, because that is being an overstimulation, and you have to deal with it on the other end of the leash. So before we even talk about addressing the dog's leash pulling and putting his harness on, we want to eradicate all medical underlying conditions. And I know you're going to tell me, hey, dude, I need to take my dog out for a walk. I don't have time 3 weeks for my dogs to get rid of these allergies, right? Well, then you can temporarily reach out to a collar, to a regular flat collar. The wider, the better. Not too wide because you don't want to have a dog's neck a corset, and not too thin because you don't want to choke your dog. And because I know you have to take your dog out for a walk, take the time for a couple of minutes in the house to teach your dog the basic skills that you want him to know. And I know because I called you and I promised you a call to action, let me share you a little video that I did for you guys so you see what I'm talking about. And while I'm pulling it up, because I was smart enough not to do that early in time, but I will be quick. Da, 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 da. I'll find it. Oh, yep. Oh, I know why. Because I'm doing a live video and now I cannot I cannot access my video that I want to show you. But I have a solution for that. Here we go. And I'm going to share the screen with you so you guys can then go after me as you wish. Share the screen. Here we go. So, this little fella is attacking people and dogs and cars on the street. And so, what I'm teaching them now in the driveway is, as you see here, loose leash. I'm trying to explain to them how this will work. Now, I want to make sure I have the tab right and the microphone on here. Here we go. Now I got it right. Good. Here we go.
Come.
So the first thing I do with a dog, you can start inside the house, is teaching the dog what come means. And for you guys who are very good on watching things, if you see in my pocket, it's just my tripod. Okay, it's not a shock collar or anything. And the dog is wearing a harness. But I didn't like that harness because it was tightening it up, so it was a no pull harness. I just used the dog's regular collar, and as you see, all my attempt will be to keep the leash loose.
We start creating the attraction.
So the first thing I do is I move backwards and I offer the dog a reward, a treat. I'm luring the dog into a behavior that then I will reward as the dog complies to it.
Call it come.
So I created an event. The dog's emotions were triggered by the sight of my treats, and the body starts moving towards my treats, and I start naming that.
We start creating the attraction. We call it come. What he does, not what I'm telling him, that means come.
So what I'm doing basically, sorry my English, is I'm preparing the dog of the exercise about to happen. I'm start pairing a cue, come, with the dog's behavior that is paired to his emotions, that is paired to a thought. So when he sees my hand, his thought is I want that treat. His emotion is I need it. I'm confident doing that. And suddenly we have a movement towards that treat. And that I will call come. Later on, if I use the cue come, I trigger all the sequence of thoughts, emotions, and be on behavior at the same time.
Come.
So as you see closely here, and I'm going to slow it down a little bit so you can see the sequence of it. The first thing I do is I trigger,
The
okay? I'm slowly grab my treats in my bag. The dog sees that I'm doing that. I make a step backwards. The dog triggers and I reward. Now, before that, I'm going to name what I'm doing. Let me put some voice on that. First the move, then the action,
come.
and then I say the word come. So the come happens, the word come is being, I say the word come as soon as the dog makes a move towards me. Let's make that back to normal speed again.
So I'm not saying first come and then pulling to me. I want him to have the intention to come and then I call it come.
And the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't want the dog to be pulled towards me. I want the dog his own free will to come to me, and that I pair with the word.
Come.
And you see, my leash is always loose. By the way, I told you before the dog is going after cars, so you're going to see cars passing by, and he's actually ignoring them.
Okay. So the next thing is, let's go.
And what I do basically now is I use the same movements the dog uses, and I start naming those movements. So I'm pairing what a dog wants to do with words that I can use later to remind him what I would like him to do.
Come. Let's go.
Now, from the position of the dog arriving at me, I will make a 180 degrees turn and I will walk in the same direction he walks, and that action and that system of behaviors, I call it let's go. Let's go means me and the dog are going in the same direction, doing the same thing because we both want it.
Come. Let's go.
And now I have the dog's full attention. Why? Because I have something that he wants and I help him to get it.
What we do is in going in a direction, doing the same thing at the same.
And you see, at no time the leash is tense. I'm not relying on the leash anymore. It's just a safety feature. It's just a parachute. I'm not using a parachute when walking the street, but I use it if I fall down in the airplane because the airplane is crashing.
Speed. That's let's go. Okay. Let's go is we go in that direction. And the same speed, we do the same thing. Going in the same direction, doing the same thing. Let's go. And a reward for that. Next is
Okay, let me stop that video here. Is that clear? Does anybody have any questions? Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to watch a couple of things. The harness the dog had was something like this. And what it will do, you see those little pieces in here? What they do is basically use that leverage and basically tie up the rope under the dog's armpits, which squeezes the dog together. And that's wrong. Of course, it works for you, but your dog's not feeling well about it. So the reason why he's not pulling on the leash is because he's in fear of getting hurt, because it really hurts. Okay? Now, the other options that we have is using those harnesses. They have the same leverage. All they do is they have this mechanism on the top that's basically used like a martingale collar. And as the dog starts to pulling forward, it squeezes his chest. At the same time, no, in that case, it chisels his throat. So it actually restricts the dog and makes him feel uncomfortable. And then we have other harnesses, like this one, that has the same system instead of on the top, it has on the front. So you attach the harness on the front. That causes other problems. And here is what we're looking for. So when you look at that diagram here, um, it kind of like we see different points. So the point number one is where this particular harness is not threatening the throat. Okay? It's not hurting any internal organs. The center point, which is the joint in the center, we see that cross line, hair crosshair, that the dog is moving his elbow is not attaching to the harness. So the elbow can move freely in that rotation, in that socket, without rubbing against the harness. And then you have this line here where the dog actually, if it happens for the dog to has emergency and needs to pull away for some reason, he's not hurting himself because that line, that dimension that goes here, it contrasts against the dog's chest, which is quite strong. I don't know, you guys who have a bulldog, you know exactly what these bulldogs will do when he just rams you with his chest, right? And at the same time, if this harness goes backwards, it doesn't squeeze any type of environment of that dog's skin because nothing else moves. It's slug fit. Now, when this harness is being fitted, one thing we have to pay attention to is that we give enough room for the chest to expand, because if the dog starts walking and the dog is going through a temperature increase internally, this chest will expand and you need to give the dog enough room to breathe and without squeezing his chest while he's getting hot. So the breathing has to be covered. So you have to have a hand thickness space in between the harness and the dog's body for them room to move. Now, some harnesses have like elastic band on that, so it gives it a slack fit, but if needed, it can expand because of that elastic structure. Now, some others are even more smarter that says, oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have my dog harness attached to the back, plus the second harness will attach to the front. And so you see already the whole dynamic that happens here. Here you can see the muscles of the dog being already squeezed on the shoulder blades, right? And at the same time, he's being squeezed around his belly. So the whole system is pulling the whole body together. But that's wrong. We don't want to do that. Do you guys have any questions so far? So when you want to choose a harness, you want to choose a harness that gives enough room on the top to go as far as possible away from the shoulder blades to give the dog room to move without restricting it. And there are already scientific papers there to see how those bad harnesses affect your dog's gauge. At the same time, the harness cannot go as far as that space 4 that you see here, because you don't want to go to the very back ribs because they're very vulnerable. You can break them. But at the same time, you don't want the neck part, number one, to be so far up to start hurting the dog's organ systems, but deep enough to hold the chest. That's a good harness in my eyes. Now, I'm not doing any advertising for any products. That's why you don't see any advertising names here. However, I have my preferences. So if you're interested in that, just shoot me an email through my website, holisticdogtraining.org, and I can give you my recommendation, particular to your dog. One other thing that I see very often people not paying attention to is the padding underneath those harnesses. And those plastic pieces or metal pieces are literally creating pressure points on the dog. You don't need that. So you want to take a harness that has a soft padding. At the same time, you don't want too much padding because the dogs will get hot. So you want to make sure that the temperature is gone on the surface of the dogs and doesn't create any heat points. At the same time, you don't want any pressure points. So all these attachment links and leverages and all these pieces there, they shouldn't touch the dog's skin. They should be protected of a pad underneath. So some companies are very smart about it because the location they put their links in is in that position that is exactly at the padding end, and you can move them up and down so they're not fixed located. Perfect, right? So, any questions? No questions? You guys are good. Or you have no clue what I'm talking about. So, if it was helpful so far, what we did, um, please let me know. If you want a second round of that, for example, we can start talking about how to put the dog a harness on, especially dogs who are very sensitive. There's a whole process to desensitize the harness. And then we can talk about how to handle the leash walking in the first place, because I know you use the harness because you want the dog to be safe when he pulls on the leash. We're going to work on not pulling on the leash. So the first exercise, you saw it, is teaching the dog to learn the cues. So you don't have to rely on the leash and not even the harness. And not all the dogs are pulling on the leash at any time. Okay? So the next time we're going to talk about is about the sensitizing to put the dog the harness on. And I have a good candidate here, which is Manny. Manny is a foster that I'm working with, and he had severe skin problems because of his wounds that he had. So he was very sensitive on the skin, and was very sensitive actually being touched in different places. And so he got very nervous. Usually, to put him the harness on, he would like mouthing you over the hands. So we had to work through that process. And then the other problem is he didn't like the harness. He got him nervous because it was something new to him. He didn't like it, right? And he was, of course, not socialized. So we had to go all these processes. Plus, he hated everything that touches his skin in the first place. So there was a good example. So, anything else? Was the explanation helpful? Or was it all over the place? I can take it. Now, for you guys who have large breed dogs, sometimes those large X large harnesses are not working well. I got a solution for you too. There's a company in Europe, um, I'll find the name, that actually lets you assemble the harness with all these individual pieces. It's a modular harness. So it has the back. Do I have a dog here somewhere? No. Um, I have it in my car. But anyway, the harness is assembled of the shoulders, the straps, the back connection, and the bottom connection to the belly, and the strap around the chest. And those are individual pieces. They don't come in as a complete harness, one size fits all or three size fits all. But each individual dimension of the dog is being a selective, specific link on that harness. So you can assemble your harness based on your dog's body form. Perfect, right? The only thing is they don't have it in US, so you have to order it abroad. I will find that website. I had that website, but for some reason I didn't keep it. Um, and that would be a perfect solution for you guys who have long, big dogs, like over 150 pounds. Now, for you guys who have tiny dogs, those harnesses are also comfortable because again, they matches the dog's body size. Now, what you don't want to do is you want to be careful how those harnesses feel to you. The smaller the dog, the more flexible the harness has to be because for the dog, that little piece becomes more stiff. Stiff means more hard on the dog's skin and surface. The one other thing that I want to point out today, which is last part, is that if you use a harness to walk your dog, you may not use the same harness in the car as a safety feature. No. In that case, you want to swap the harness once your dog is in the car with a harness that actually fits the car and your dog. Think of that. You cannot have a refrigerator that functions as a stove, right? Now, a harness in the car has a completely different needs than your harness that you need to walk your dog. The weight distribution that that harness needs to hold is exponentially higher. Imagine that a 75-pound dog in a car accident will weigh over a ton of weight on a crash. If you go with 40 miles an hour, right, your chances of survival are going very low. Your dog becomes a bullet in your car. And the only thing to restrain that bullet is your little leash and your little harness. Now, your dog has 150 pounds. There is no harness that will hold that weight in a car crash. Picture this: you have a 3-point attachment on your harness. Remember, you pull the hand up there and pull that thing down. It goes around your waist and it goes around your shoulder, right? So if you put that harness on your dog, where does this weight goes to? To only one point, which is the click that you put your harness into the safety belt clipper. So the whole 150 pounds clip on that particular point instead of on 3 points, only on one. So that point has 3 times as much force to deal with. And imagine that little thing is attached with a little screw on your chassis car. So the weight of your dog would pull that screw out of your chassis of your car. That kind of forces we're talking about. So your dog will be able to destroy your car seat and you in front of it in a car crash. You see the picture here, right? So if you want to use a car with your dog and using a harness on your dog, there is no harness beyond 70 pounds, 75 pounds, because that's as much that particular point can handle in the car. Everything beyond that has to go further back behind metal barriers. So if you do have a crash, those barriers that are attached to your car frame will hold that pressure up, and the dog was not going as fast through your car as he would without. So there is no way your dog can sit on the back seat without any harness and you feeling safe being crashed. Not you crashing, somebody else hits you with 30 miles an hour and you get out of it. No way. And plus, if your car rolls over, that dog will never stay in the car. No chance. So, enough with that. I wish you had more questions, but you don't. It's concerning. If you had more questions, I knew I'm like didn't explain enough or what? I don't know. So I would like some feedback here. I will do another video. Um, I will get some. We're gonna talk about harnesses in the car, and another video we're gonna talk about. Hello, friends. We're gonna talk about leash pulling specifically. We want to address that part because I feel everybody of you deserve a good solution for your dog's pulling on the leash. There's no excuse you didn't know. And there is no reason for you to go on any aversive training methods like shock collars, prong collars, or choke collars, because once you understand the concept, your dog will love you even more. I can guarantee you that. I cannot guarantee you a lot, but that I will guarantee you. If you understand what your dog is struggling with and you help him out with that, your dog will love you more. De facto. Good. Good. Pulling is on. Now, how many of you have shared that? One person? Two person? Good. So I know you guys want to hoard this for yourself. I get it. I do this too sometimes. And don't share these things. Like, don't share your good beach with somebody else because somebody else will go there and you end up being in a beach full of people, right? It's not something like that. You should share that so people can learn from it. Okay. Now, another tip for you lovers of training videos, I would like you to dedicate yourself and like videos that are not force related. No prongs, no shock collars, no choke collars. Okay? And what I'd like you to do, it doesn't cost you a lot. As it pops up to you, just click the like button and the love button once. And yes, you can follow this person too. Because we need to share those good solutions and not get stuck watching the bad guys, because all it does, it rises the algorithm and these guys get more views than the good guys. So you want to be with the good guys, you have to support the good guys with your viewer and your reaction on that video, even your comment. Great job. Copy paste it. Awesome. Like it. Love it. Whatever you want to say on it. And help the algorithm recognize that this is better than the other stuff, right? Have Facebook and whatever those TikTok videos are on the good side. Okay, may the leash force be with you. Okay, it was nice talking to you guys today. Usually you meet me on Saturday, but I just had it today, so I had to do this video. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time. How do I close my thing here? Ah, you go.